Everyone. Welcome to another episode of REI Behind the Scenes. Every Thursday, I host an episode of either REI Behind the Scenes or Transformation Time. My name is Diana Lizrazo, and today's guest speaker is Suman Chopra. Oh no, I forget the last name. Chakraborty. There you go, right? Chakraborty. I'm so sorry, Suman. Complicated last names. On REI Behind the Scenes, we get to talk about their specific projects, what they've worked on, what the numbers are like. We get to hear about the problems they've encountered and how they solve them. And if it were something new, what they would do differently next time. So let's send Suman some hearts. Let's welcome him on and let's get him on. Let's get Suman on. And pardon me for the terrible. Hey,
Hey,
Suman, how are
hi.
you? Did you like how I butchered your last name?
No, that's perfectly fine. It's a tough one, and you did a good job by, covering it up. So that's a good thing.
Hey, Shan. I just want to say hi, Shan.
Hi, Ishan.
I'm going sideways over here. Okay, there we
Yeah.
go. So let's start with a little bit, let's tell the viewers a little bit about yourself. What's your real estate strategy? Whatever you'd like to share before we start talking about specific project.
Yeah, sure. So, hello everyone. My name is Suman, and I started my real estate journey in 2021 after I got my permanent resident status here. And my main focus is in the multifamily side. So, I do the regular value add projects. That's where I'm a bit comfortable right now. And right now, we are adding land development and short-term rental strategies within the multifamily space. So, doing more of the multifamily and trying to see how we can add more value. Right now, I have projects in Canada as well as in the States. So, we are a cross-border real estate investor too. So that's pretty much it about me. And thanks once again, Dana, for inviting me in your show.
No problem. Yeah, thanks for
Yeah.
sharing. So, which project are you going to talk to us about today?
Yeah. So today I'll be talking about 8-unit project in St. John's in Newfoundland. So that will be the project I'll be talking about.
Awesome. So what strategy did you use from that? Tell us a little bit about what you were doing with that property. Like none of the problems, just basically like what it was, what your plan
Right.
was.
So I got this property off market through the real estate communities that I'm part of. And what I came to know about the Newfoundland market is landlord friendly market. So that was my first appeal in the project. And being from Ontario, it was more appealing where it's more friendly. So this is a 8-unit building, which is having like a mix of 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, and 3 bedroom. And this we bought it in 574,000. So pretty decent price as compared to Ontario market. So price per door is about 71,000. So I was like, okay, it's pretty appealing, as compared to price per door. The market is more friendlier. And the best part was our team was able to negotiate 83% seller financing. So that was a very appealing thing
Yeah,
for
it's
us. Yes,
amazing.
because you don't get that. So basically he was acting like a bank, and just for in the interest, I know most of you, we all know the seller financing, but if it's new to anyone, just would like to clarify that seller financing or vendor take back is mainly where the seller is financing you up to some extent, and it's a broad concept. In the interest of time, don't want to go too much detail, but we had 83% seller financing where it's interest only payment. So that was very good. We got good time for doing our renovations, and the remaining we leverage. So I have good connection with investing community. So we did some collaborations for the remaining part. Uh, So the strategy is pretty simple here, where we buy the property using creative financing methods. We do some light renovations in the units, and there is no rent cap. That's another advantage in Newfoundland. So we can, go for the market rent increase. So that's the project on a bird's eye view.
Awesome, awesome, love it. And so, tell us what the numbers like. What did you purchase it at?
Yeah. So this was we purchased it at 574,000, like close to 580. So
And you said
roughly
it's 6 units, right? You
eight
said? Or
eight
8 units, sorry.
units.
Eight
Yeah. So
units.
roughly 72,000 per
Mhm.
door, which is pretty nominal. Out of which 83%, like close to 475,000 on the seller financing.
Mhm.
So the remaining was roughly 90,000 to close the property, 95,000. So
Mhm.
pretty good, I would say, appealing thing that you don't have to worry too much about the conventional financing to begin with, because
Mhm.
when we are closing a property through the traditional lender, uh, it is too tough, and the documentation is lot. So that's how
Mhm.
we bought the property.
100%. And I think the other good thing is, even I think a benefit is to the seller themselves too, right? It's like, why pay the interest to the bank if you
Yes,
could pay it, for example, to them? That's like extra money in their pocket. Or, for example, to friends, like other people that may have the money. I feel like why not support each other, the communities or the
right,
families?
right.
Because this is money that goes into their pockets, which I think is a fabulous idea, to be
Exactly.
honest.
So many people have this question that why the seller will finance, right? So the to answer that question is it is advantageous for them as well. So many sellers don't know the advantage for them. So you have to probably, as an investor, it's our responsibility to condition their mind and explain them the benefits from their side, right? So the
Mhm.
advantage for them is, they can defer the taxes, and of course, they need to check with their accountant and legal team as well. But on a high level, it's an advantage when you can defer. That's number one. Second is that they are, holding the, just like a bank would do, they are in the first position, right? So let's say, even if we cannot make the payment, just like a bank, they get a property which will be in a much better condition because you'll be renovating and doing some great things. So they have that advantage. Plus, they can get these additional income as well. Like the interest we are paying, it's on top of the purchase price, and they also get their purchase price most of the times. So these are the
100%.
advantages.
Yeah, 100%. And yeah, 100% love it. And then, okay, so we got so what were the expected, what did you estimate the renovation budget to be?
Yeah, so here I think we had to, and one of the interview we had with you was the renovation, right? So this is one of our learning of was like, what happened was we did a rough estimate, but then, with your interviews, so we had a rough estimate about like 50, 60,000 budget, but it's going to go slightly higher. Good part is not that much, and the material and the labor cost is not as high as the premium city, so that's an advantage. But
Mhm.
lesson learned for the future is that renovation is the place where your budget can go really
Mhm.
very good, right?
Mhm.
So
So
I
what
would
did it ended up being?
so
So
right,
what?
yeah. So right now we are still in the renovation side. So, we will be like right now, I think 50, 60,000 we have already done. And I think we need more around 50, 60,000 roughly.
Okay.
So even though it's become doubled, but still good part is it's not that much that we cannot handle.
Mhm.
So that
Sorry,
will,
it doubled?
yeah,
It
kind of
didn't
like
double.
it might go in the double stage, like kind of
Oh,
60,
sorry, double
60,000
digits?
to maybe 100, that range.
Oh, okay. Got you. So sorry. So you were expecting it to be 50, right?
50,
Around
60,000.
50K, and
Yes.
it may go up to 100K. You're saying
100K
total.
or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because initially, some of the budgets we were getting of 280,000, 230,000. Like, I don't know from where they got those, but basically they say, right, like when you give the contractors renovation budget, they just want to build it a new multifamily. So as an investor, you need, because we got quotations for 230,000, 280,000 for 8 unit building.
Wow.
So, which is lot. So, but then we came down, we did some negotiation, and the best part was our property manager turned out to be really great. So that's one of the great things that has happened in the St. John's market for us.
That's awesome. And we'll definitely afterwards we'll deep dive into that and
Yeah,
definitely get some learning experiences for sure.
yeah,
Okay, so we got the
yeah,
budget of the renos and the
yeah, yeah.
expected. And so how are the holding costs? What do you say on average? What is it per month?
The cost, you mean to say the expenses?
The monthly expenses.
Yeah,
Yeah, the mortgage, just
yeah,
everything, whatever your expenses are.
right. So we have like interest only payment right now for 2,300. That's interest only that we are paying. Then we have $400 for the insurance, and we also have like roughly 700, 600 to 700 for the property taxes. So the tenant pays the utilities, that's good. And we account for 8 to 10% of the revenue. So right now we have like a gross income per month of like annually 60,000, 70,000, that range. So we account for 10% in the property management side. And the good part is because the property managers are really good, so we have not seen so far some crazy numbers going here and there. So roughly property management will be like $500 a month. That's pretty much it that we are seeing right now from the expenses side. So
Okay, awesome. And and so since we don't know yet, I'm assuming I mean probably not that soon too, but you may be doing a refinance.
yes,
What do you expect that the end value to be once you're done everything? What are you guessing it will
yeah.
be?
So we are, once all the 8 units will be done, we are guessing at 800 to 830,000 after repair value at a very conservative, like 7.5% cap.
Mm-hmm.
So that's our end goal to, reach all the market rent to close to like 85, $90,000 gross income, and take the ARV to 800, 830, and then we'll be refinancing the amounts.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And so now talking about, and let's go back actually to, because I think we've covered all of the expenses. Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
sorry. And so what are you expected the income? So
Yeah.
what are you expecting the final rent income to be?
Yeah. So we started with $5,000 per month, as is property, where it's $60,000 per month, per year, sorry. So that's the gross income. So we are, taking it to the 90,000 range. So that's where, so round about, I think $1,000 per unit. That's where we are, roughly targeting. So
Oh, that's amazing. That's
yeah,
great. That's
yeah,
awesome. And so now going back to actually, because like that, especially like in Ontario, like you're saying, let's say getting tenants out is harder. So what was your guys' strategy to either, and whatever it is, right? If you're getting tenants out, did you get them out, or are you renovating with them there? Like, what was your renovation strategy with your tenants?
yeah. So the best part is because as is we are able to manage and sustain the property, right? So we are not in a rush. So what we did initially with our property manager, we saw where we are, what are the opportunity. So every unit we estimated the cost and what is the as is rent, and what we can take. So what we are doing is we are not pressurizing all the units at once. So that's not our goal. So what we are doing is, let's say, some units have like a $10,000, let's say, renovation budget, and we see there is an increase, right? So we are prioritizing that. So good part about the market where we are in is it has no rent cap. like as in you can increase the range. So for example, one of our unit was at $600. What we did, we increased it till now 950. So in Ontario, I don't think that's going to be possible, right? There is a limit. So our plan is as is when people are leaving the place, because of some situation. That time we are pumping in our renovation budget, or sometimes it can be like, if the tenant is doing some nuisance, then we just target one unit at a time. So our
Mm-hmm.
strategy is to take it slow, not to rush, because there is no immediate urgency to do the things as is.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so, but to date, you've probably put in around 50,000 so far, around there 40,000 in
40,000, yes.
renovations.
40,000 we have put. So we have like moved like 3 units so far.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where we have, but now we know, and it can be less than 100K as well, like as we are going, we are
Right.
tightening up things even better. And another thing is we now are using the contact of property manager, and she's pretty good. She really does really great. Like there was one of the renovation for 15,000. So she canceled that and gave us in the 12K on her own. Like we did not even pressurize her, which is a good thing. You want your team
Mhm.
to be aligned with you on your direction. Uh,
100%. And it shows that she cares even of the budget, which
she
is very
she does.
important.
Yes.
Yeah.
So what happens is like she will say that this place is the other neighborhood is using it, so she takes care and gets it done. She just informs me, very communicative, and what happens is now we know the exact design expectation. Initial units do take a hiccup, right? So now we are more streamlined in the process. She exactly knows what we need. So the process turnaround is faster and it's more cost effective as well.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
So you three, so far you've turned over
Yes.
three. And actually I'm curious, it'll be very interesting maybe to do like once it's done and you've done a refi because and like that because you may be waiting. For example,
Yes.
I feel like you may wait even to do a refi because
Yes.
of like interest rates going how they're up. Or for
Exactly.
example, like in Ontario, I'm curious over there if you're seeing the same things is we're seeing material increases going up again in the last few months.
Right.
I'm curious that, so you never, I feel like we are in such a fluctuating
Yeah.
market that even who even knows what the price of things will be or costs of things will be. So it'll be
Right.
definitely interesting to see what the final is because things are just like we're in a fluctuating market these days, right? So it's like hard to
Exactly.
tell like like you said, will you be going up to 100K or maybe you'll just be an extra an extra tens of thousands maybe, you
Right.
know?
And that's the part which I think no investor has control, because, as an investor, we cannot control the economy or the prices.
Mhm.
But yeah, like at best, whatever we can do, because yes, renovation is something where majority things are not in our control. But yeah, like
Mhm.
our goal is to, keep pushing what we can do. And if we can wait, like right now, we are not doing a rush.
Mhm.
Let's wait. We have the VTB financing, we'll be extending it for another year. So, you have to plan out a certain thing, and then, as is something changes, you have to dynamically do some shifts to keep it intact.
And that's awesome you're saying that because I feel like that's almost like the definition of being a real estate investor, right? We have to be ready to change and adapt to whatever is going on because if we don't, I think if anything, that burns us more because
Exactly.
if we're not ready to pivot and change, that could be detrimental to our portfolios.
Exactly. So I would say, just, we have to constantly gauge the market, the situation, how things are going, and if possible, like take unit by unit, like divide it into small chunks. I know there is a very quick rush to do the refinance, but sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, right? So building by building and situation by situation,
Mhm.
do the measurement and, take decisions accordingly.
100%. So during the renovation process that you've gone through so
Yeah.
far, what have been the struggles that you've gone through, or what have been your learning experiences through it?
Yeah. So I think the first thing I would say, like the quotations, like that was some, like we were getting some crazy numbers. So first lesson was don't just expect the contractors to, give you some quotation which you will benefit us as an investor, right? So because they are seeing from their angle and they want to, shift the complete building. So that is the first lesson I learned. And I'm happy that we did not go with the first quotation itself. So never go by first quotation. Do some analysis. The second challenge you can get is the property manager. The property manager plays a very key role. Like fortunately, I got a great property manager and through reviews, but there are some properties in our portfolio where it's a nightmare, right? So your property manager plays a very key role. So you have to see whether they are aligned with you in your goals, or they are making money by going in the opposite direction, right? So that is what
Mhm.
you have to see. And then the third,
So what
yeah,
would you do? Sorry
yeah,
to interrupt,
yeah,
but I think that's a great point to talk
yeah,
about from your learning experience, because like you said, this one you have an amazing property manager,
yeah,
but you also had other properties, or you have other properties with
yes,
nightmare property managers.
yes,
So from your experience right now,
yeah,
what would you advise to yourself and others
yeah,
on what you would do in your next project, or for other people's next projects? Like, what would you do before closing a property, let's
yeah,
say? What would be your process?
absolutely. So I would say that definitely, we went through references, but if it's their first property project, right, definitely be very careful. Reason being like, majority people think that, I can just be a property manager. That's not the case, right? So usually we don't give a go ahead to new property managers, but because it was through a known reference, we went through. So, my suggestion or my experience would be don't go for brand new property manager, because you will then be their guinea pig, right? You don't want to be that. And the second thing I would
100%.
say,
And so actually, before you finish that, sorry,
no,
I
no,
just like
no,
feel like there's a lot of great information here that
I'm
you'll be
happy.
providing.
I'm happy in that way.
So, so how would you identify someone as a new or experienced enough
Yeah.
investor?
Yes. So basically, just ask them the questions, because majority of the time, that takes care. Like, and usually we follow the same process. It's just because in this one we'll just let it go, but now we are able to counter. So what you have to do is just ask them about the projects, what kind of contract conditions are there, what is the exit in the property management thing, if it's a 30-day or a 14-day or maybe 90 days. So read the clauses, what they are putting, how the money will be flowing, like what are the software they are using, because the property management software is a key thing. So, and if they have any projects done, which province, which property or which cities they have done, because they may be good in one city but may not have a good presence, right? So that is one thing. And check through the references, like in your network, just check through them, who are their clients, and go through them. So that mainly solves the problem. And even after this, like it's just like tenant screening, in spite of doing a lot of stuff, you get bad tenants, right? So what you have to do is make sure that track them, how things are going. And if you see there are a couple of red flags, like not small mistakes, but like, they are putting a lot of funds in the renovation and you don't see it going on anywhere. Or we had short-term rental property management where, they are arguing with the guest, they are arguing with us, or you have to put in a lot of effort. These are red flags where you have to be cautious, and then you have to make sure you're moving it into the another property management, because everyone makes a mistake, right? That's not the problem, but what is
Mhm.
your corrective course of action that you have to focus.
Mhm. Yeah, I love it. Those are all amazing tips.
Yep.
I think it is very important like that before you acquire property, basically you're saying do an interview.
Yes.
Make sure you know that person
Yep.
and you know that they understand the processes, basically what you're saying, right? Understand what it is to hire, or not to hire, sorry, understand what it is to even get a new tenant in, right? Because this is their responsibility. So I love it. Yeah, those are all great tips.
Thank you so much. And also, see how they screen the tenants, what kind of,
Mhm.
checkpoints they have. That gives you an idea whether the way you would screen a tenant, are they doing the same things or not, right? So it's as good as, selecting a candidate in your company, because, you have to put a lot of measures. And in spite of all these, if, things are not going in the right direction, then, start going in another direction with a new property manager,
Mhm.
because these
And
things,
another thing
yeah,
that you said that I wanted to highlight too, that I forgot to say was, which I thought was really good, was that you, when you start with a new property
yeah,
manager,
yeah,
like you said, like checking up on them, I think is very important because a lot of investors like to be like, oh, I'm in multifamily because the property managers take care of everything.
no,
But always fundamentally, what's always going to happen is if you don't care, they don't care. So
exactly,
it's like there has to be a level, which is basically what you were alluding to before, you were
yes,
directly saying to us, is
yes,
that you have to be on them, not every day or
yes,
anything, but probably at the beginning a little bit more.
yeah,
And then as you build, as they give you the
yes,
confidence, which is basically what you're saying, then you probably minimize it maybe, and then maybe becomes less time, maybe not exactly like as many, a lot of times, but maybe a little bit less, but you do have to show them basically that you care about the property, which is what you're basically telling the viewers.
right, yes, because every investor wants hands free, which is good, but don't do it in the initial closing. Like when you close the property, it's not, you are hands free from day one. It's
Mm-hmm.
still like an onboarding process. You need
Yeah.
to understand how things are going, and how, people are working, whether it aligns or not, and then have certain, checkpoints or weekly meetups, or have those touch points. Like, don't be
100%.
completely ignorant of your property, right?
Hmm. Yeah, love it. All great points.
Yes, and another
And
point,
so,
yeah,
yeah,
please.
go on. No,
Yeah,
no, no,
so
go on. I was going to say the other next point
okay,
actually.
and
So,
another point is, there will be surprises in the renovation. Reason being, when we are buying the property, we cannot dig each and everything, right? So have some contingency fund in the renovation as well, because what happened,
hmm
like in one of the units, when they started, replacing the floor, even the layer below the floor was damaged. Like, fortunately, it was not expensive, but that was a good indication that, when you are buying, you can have property inspection and all those things, but no one is going to dig the property or, do things, right? It is just when you start, there will be some surprises. So keep a check of the big ticket items and the red flags, whatever you know based on your knowledge, but have some contingency fund on the side as well, especially in the
hmm
renovation or if you are adding additional units.
100%. Yeah. Yeah, definitely contingency fund is very important.
Exactly. Like, fortunately, I don't remember the exact cost, but they were doing the floor change. It was, I think, 300, 400, like below $1,000, which is not very scary in the real estate world. But, it was an indication what if, a surprise gift will come out, which is very expensive, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So,
'Cause that's not, yeah, like you said, that's not that
yes,
bad. I think the scarier ones is like you open up a wall and then there's electrical issues, plumbing
yes,
issues. I feel like those are like,
yes.
ooh, they can hit kind of hard.
Exactly. So fortunately, like, in that way, I don't think I have got any big ticket surprises in this project, specifically. So that's a good
hmm
thing. And it's a low managed, like, we can manage the uh, fluctuations in this because of the overall project, which I feel is a good, because you don't want to land up in a big ticket expense which was not accounted for.
100%. Any other things that issues that you found in the project that you'd like to discuss?
Yeah, so one of the surprise thing that happened which was the first time in the history of the property management and in my real estate experience, was there was an unfortunate death, not in the multi-family inside, but in the hospital, right? So it was a bit disheartening thing, and it was something which we don't account for. But the good part is, we are the property manager. They are working with the city, so it happened this month only. So now I have to go back and follow, because 1 month you cannot, discard their belongings and all those things. So that's something new and unfortunate situation. It happened, and when I heard that news, it was a bit sad. Even though I've not met the tenant, but you somehow get connected because they were in your property. But that was probably a very different and unfortunate event. So right now, the property management, they are working with the city and the landlord tenant board to see all the guidelines. Unfortunately, the process is pretty simple there. So that is something, it will be a good learning of how to handle these situation. And I reached out to my another business partner who has not gone through a death incident, but like he had a antisocial tenant. So, I took a lot of tips from him. So that was an additional learning in this project. Like, what
Yeah.
if these
And
things
it's
happen?
always things kind of like you say, like as you increase your tenant pool,
Yeah,
you're going to be finding things that happen
right,
that may not be so common or hasn't happened to you
right,
yet. And it's always going to be a learning curve. And there's always going to be, I feel like, I don't know, as an investor, especially as we're increasing the number of units we
yeah,
have, especially
yeah,
if that's what we want to do, like we want to be landlords.
yes,
We're going to be encountering unique scenarios. And again, what you were saying before, right? The pivoting, the changing, the adapting. Like, it's like, okay, what do we do next? Like,
yes,
because like you're saying, it's like you want to be sensitive to the family. So it's like, what do we need to do to support them? What do
right,
we need to support ourselves? What are the proper procedures we need to take to make sure that we're doing everything, in the appropriate manner?
right.
So
So,
it'll be interesting to hear how that works. Because like you said, in Newfoundland, the process is a lot faster
yes,
with tenants in general.
yes,
So it'll be interesting to see, because I feel like that in itself though is still a different scenario. Because like you said, you can't really discard the belongings, and there's like
yes,
a lot of like probably you're gonna have to deal with like all the inheritance type
yes,
things. So that may come with maybe a bit of a longer process to wait for that stuff to happen. And so that'd be interesting actually to hear. I feel like it sounds like we're going to be doing a phase two of this
yes,
in maybe a few years, once you
100%.
finish it. Because
Right,
like that, there's always new things, there's always new and different things. Not everyone experiences the same type of tenants, the same
right.
type of scenarios, so there's always a lot of new things. So it's definitely interesting.
Because even in the property management company's history, who is working there, they never encountered this situation. So it was a new learning for them as well. And good to know, because that's how we can, let's say anything unfortunate, because this is something inevitable, right? It can happen with any of the landlord, right? So it's better to at least know the general idea of how to handle these, so that no one is taken by surprise. And then discuss with landlord tenant board and the city specific rules. But on a general, if I can give, like, make sure the family is contacted, check if there is any will and all those things, if any. So then be in touch with the city, make sure the utility companies are notified, all those things are taken care and all. So
Mhm.
these are some of the general practices which I feel will be helpful in these situations.
Mhm. Yeah, and even if you want, actually, I know someone not in Newfoundland, they deal with actually not senior homes, but their properties are built for seniors. So I
Yeah,
bet you they probably know. So if you want later on, I can connect you with them.
yeah,
Again, they're not in Alberta, but they can probably give you some kind of just understanding of the basics of, or some help with that if you want. So I could always send you their information later on if you like.
Yep, that will be very helpful for sure.
Awesome. And so let's going back. Wait, were there any other
Uh,
problems
no,
that you wanted to
the,
discuss?
these are the main things that I wanted to.
Those are the main ones.
Yeah,
Okay. And so I wanted to go back to the renovations and specifically because you're talking about the quote themselves,
yeah,
that you were receiving this high range from like very expensive, to I'm sure you probably got some super cheap ones.
yes.
So from what you've experienced so far, like let's say with the contractors, are you are you happy with the contract you chose and like how was that vetting process between like that the quotes you
Yes,
got?
so I think the first thing was what we did was I because Newfoundland is not my local market, so I reached out to the local people who have invested there, who are staying there, plus the property management they have. So we asked for quotations. Then we saw some people quote extremely high, some people quote extremely low. So both are not the best because someone may quote just low just to get in the game, right? So
Exactly.
always be wary of these two quote ranges. So we saw what are the practical quotations that we're getting, and then we finalized who is done the previous work, who is coming from what references, and then we finalized on the renovation team. So
Oh,
far
that's
the
amazing.
renovation has been good. Like the team did a great job. Now the budget and everything, they are doing pretty well. So that way I'm pretty happy with the output and everything that has been done so far.
Awesome. That's great. And so that means, so then with the extra expenses you've seen, there, what has it, so we heard one, it was just the flooring.
Yeah,
What kind of other unforeseen costs
ma-
were you experiencing?
mainly like the cost in itself. Like when we did initial analysis, we thought that it will be, for example, a 10K expense, because the transaction was going in a pretty quick way because of off market nature. So that's where the quotation and the actual expenses jumped. So we didn't see much surprises, but the surprise was in the price itself. Like what was given initial from some X vendor, we went on the Y vendor for the real estate. So that's where the
Mhm.
surprises were coming.
Yeah. And I can imagine then that's also probably just impacted by like what I was talking about before, the increase in materials that
Yes,
maybe at the time of the quote, because I have definitely been seeing this too, where at the time of the quote, you're thinking that the material costs are
yes,
this. And like you said, because especially this is very big in the multifamily areas, actually that the expectation isn't like a flip where you get everything done in the span of like let's say 3 months to 6 months.
yes,
Usually your renovations are usually in the span of I would say maybe over there maybe between 6 months to a year,
yes,
but in Ontario it's something like three years to 5 years. Like
yes,
usually you're doing a bigger span
right,
because it takes time to turn over those tenants,
right,
and in those times you may get these budgets of like, oh, it's this amount of money. And either, I mean, right now we're dealing with material increases, but same thing, you may not be turning over a tenant until next year. The
yes,
prices can have
can
changed,
change.
labor
Exactly.
costs can have changed.
Right.
And so these things are even things I think that need to be taken into consideration a lot more, especially in the multifamily field, because they are, I mean, especially when you're doing like investments, I would say, right? Because like that, you have partners in there helping you. So it's like, you need to make sure that you have it, that, having enough funds are important because like that something can happen next year. You may do a percentage increase that, you know what, again, this is a really changing market. So I feel like you can't really predict these things.
No.
But in the normal, I feel like market, you normally do an increase of per year, maybe like, let's say 2 to 5% or something, depending on where you are, maybe more like that. Different areas are so different, but an increasing that, we're probably going to do in 2 years, we're going to probably get another two done. And then you're just doing an increase to kind of have a little bit of buffer room for that
Yes.
too, because you just don't know where things will
Exactly.
be.
And it also might be that, we might split the refinance. Like, let's say do one move to the traditional so that, the principal component pays back we are now, more in control there, and let's
Mm-hmm.
do a slow burn. So, we are prepared to even do a dynamic change in strategy, because as is, the property is not like a burning, building where we have to fix something, which in a way is
100%.
good. So, we might do that strategy also.
Love that. Yeah, that's great. And that's where you were again saying it earlier about the pivoting, right? It's
Yes.
just like as things come up, it's like what's the best, basically you're in the process of like what's the best decision to make, you know? Should we halfway through renos just refinance because
Yeah.
there's so much money in the deal and then we
Yeah.
can use those part of those funds to
Yeah.
continue? Or it's like, is it better to wait?
Exactly.
Right? Maybe it's better to wait a few
Yeah.
years and then do the refinance. But
Yeah.
it's like you said, like that ability to pivot and analyze is so important, right? Because then you decide for your project, which is what you're saying,
Yeah.
what is the best approach to
Best
take to
approach.
get the project done to the best that what works for you guys, right?
Exactly. And yes, like best case, we all want to get refi as soon as possible, but at the same time, like I see multifamily as a long-term game. It's not like a flip. So,
Mm-hmm.
if we can do in the first year itself, but if you see now we are doing even more bigger multifamilies where very normal transition is the refi is 3 to 5 years. So, like as we are going bigger in the game with more bigger multifamily, so
Mm-hmm.
the multifamily is about, let it, absorb all the fluctuations, because multifamily is mainly for, capital preservation, as they say, right? So I believe in that, and I'm more of a long-term investor. So I'm not frankly much worried about the refinance to be done very
Mm-hmm.
soon if need be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's a good thing, right? Because especially that again in this market,
Yeah,
I'm like, if you don't have to refinance, probably
right.
better not to.
Exactly. Like I'm not in a rush. We might extend the VTB, the seller financing for one more year. So which is fine. So
Mm-hmm.
by next year or so, at least we can do the half renos and refi just to bring the traditional financing. So
Mm-hmm.
this is pretty fun stuff. Like I enjoy real estate, and I'm not in a rush that I need to do things, especially when it's closed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love it. And let's talk about, because you said you raised the funds for this project.
Yeah.
So what kind of stresses or problems did you come up with when you were trying to raise
I
funds?
think from capital raising perspective, this was not the stressful deal. Reason being, I had some close people. The stress was in the closing steps. So maybe we can have another session about the where other projects were like capital raising stress. This was not, to be very frank.
Mhm.
Here,
And just because you're saying it's not, what do you think made it not stressful? Like, what
because
about maybe, for example, the property deal was it that they really loved? Curious to hear, like, what made
yeah.
it not a stressful situation.
Right, yes. And yes, just to pass on the message that, capital raising is stressful, but luckily not this deal, just for your audience.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of the most stressful, and maybe we can talk in any other forum. But
Mm-hmm.
reason why this was not stressful was number one, the seller financing. So the majority or the lion's share was taken care by the seller. So the remaining capital was very less. Second advantage was the purchase price was very affordable. So that was another factor too. And it was manageable to close from your own pocket too, in case we were not able to raise.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the reason that, we were able to close. And I had some good connections where, they already know me, and, we have done business together. So
And actually, I
that,
just want to emphasize that because I think that is very pivotal when it comes to raising funds,
yeah,
is that you were saying that when you have the funds,
yeah,
I feel like you're raising in a non-stressed out way,
yes,
which it shows that you're like relaxed and you have the confidence for it. I
yes,
feel like if you're raising in a sense because you have no money and you have to meet deadlines,
yeah,
that shows. I mean, unless you're
yeah,
an amazing salesperson, because some
yeah,
people are amazing and can do it without showing stress. But
yeah.
I think that is actually a very pivotal part to raising capital is not showing that if you are or aren't. But I feel like in your case, you weren't, you also, just the fact that you had the funds
Yeah,
kind of helps you like not show that stress. I mean, maybe you don't anyways, but
yeah,
I just wanted to bring that up because for some people it may show the stress when they're like, oh my God, I have to raise the
yeah,
funds. I
yeah,
got to do it. And it shows. And then to the
yeah,
other people, that urgency may come off as like, what is wrong with the property?
yeah,
Could show off so many different things
yeah,
that there is nothing wrong, but it's like because you're stressed to try to get those funds
yeah.
can obviously show something different.
Absolutely, and that's a very great point. And another thing is like I always cater to investors' needs. Like as in, like some people may have different requirements to make them comfortable, to proceed. Another will have it. So I would say when you are doing, working with partners, always try to be a good listener and
Hmm.
try to cater their reasonable demands. Like I'm
Hmm.
not saying give your sin number something like that, but definitely if there are reasonable things, because they need to be confident and comfortable, so respect that fact. So I always respect that fact, listen to what they are looking for, and try to explain, because everyone is coming from different investing background.
Hmm.
Some may have no clue at all, right? So take the
Hmm.
time to nudge them, make them understand. So that is another pivotal point, I would say.
Yeah, I love that. That is very amazing because that is true. Because I have even seen it on my side because I do private lending where, for example, I'll ask for certain
Yeah,
information because I mean, I'm lending to this person.
yes,
And, if they get scared about that,
yeah,
that's showing me. I'm like, man, if you don't have the confidence in you, I
yeah,
don't I don't know, you're not helping me have confidence in you, right? It's just
exactly.
like those kind of things do come off and especially because I don't know, I'm getting like this terrible shade, so I hope you guys don't mind, but I'm getting all
Yeah,
these lines all over me. But
yeah,
but it shows because I know especially a lot of investors, especially with experience, will sometimes be like, "Oh, you should trust me." Right.
yeah,
And I think right now is actually a great time when you're seeing this, that even amazing investors are having to show their credentials or show like they have to prove themselves because of the environment we're in and not getting offended by that,
yeah,
because like if I have confidence in me, why would I get offended or be worried to show it? Because I mean, you always, for example, when you're going to a mortgage, oh my God, I'm sorry, guys.
yeah, yeah,
Oh, there we go.
yeah,
But for example, when you're going to get a mortgage, doesn't matter who you
yeah,
are, you're always having to provide those details,
yes,
right? And it's just like not being uncomfortable with that, is very important. And so that's amazing that you said that because it's very important as an investor that you having confidence in you shows by you providing the details that are needed. And like you
yeah,
said, obviously you're not providing everything,
yeah,
but providing what is reasonable for you to show your credibility as an investor, for them to have that confidence in you to be able
yes,
to be able to invest in
right.
you.
And yes, and like if they are experienced lender, then that means they seriously want to, do business with you, and that's why they are looking. It's not that they're trying to waste your time. So I
Mhm.
always respect that, and I work, because for me, I see it's not just about one transaction; it's about a long-term relationship, right? It's all about relationship, and there is no harm, because initially it takes time, right? But once
Mhm.
you do great things, it's very easy to scale. So I see it as not capital raising, but to build relationship with people.
Mhm.
And I frankly
Yeah.
really enjoy it. It's one of the most challenging thing, but it's one of the most rewarding thing as well.
Yeah, and another thing actually I wanted to emphasize that you also said before was the listening, because
Yeah,
I think that is very, very pivotal for people who are amazing at raising capital, because, for example, they may actually not have the funds available because they may be like, oh, I have 100K, but I need it back by next year to put my kids to university or something. I don't know, or whatever, buy something else. And, with you listening, you would have been like, oh, okay, I do not need that money because this money is probably going to stay for like a 2 to 3 to 5 year
yeah,
process. And then it's kind of like, so that listening becomes very good in the way of making sure that they are investing their money in the right way. You know,
Yeah.
because a lot of people don't think, they do think like, oh, I have this much money in the bank account, take all my money. And you're just like, whoa, 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 you know,
Yeah.
like, like I always like to tell people, pretend you're not going to get that money back for 5 years. Now
Yeah.
tell me if you
Yeah.
can actually give me that money. Because if you can't last 5 years without that money, I probably don't want it because, you know, it's like, especially in your sense, right?
Yeah.
In the multifamily sense, like these are long projects.
Right.
And the last thing we want as investors is for our passive investors to be going broke
Yeah.
because they needed that money. You know, it's like
Yeah.
this is supposed to be an enjoyable process. It's not supposed to be a stressful process
Yeah.
for our
Exactly.
passive investors.
Exactly. And another point is that, even though the money you don't see, but, once you are in the multifamily, it's working for you. So
Hmm.
another point I want to share is that, the money grows when you put it, right? So you may not see it, but, they sometimes they wonder like, okay, 3 years, 5 years is a long time, but, anyways, that money is sitting somewhere and doing lesser work for you. So why
Hmm.
not, put it somewhere else? So that is another
Hmm.
thing I had to, explain. And naturally, because everyone has a different background, but you have to respect them and, make sure they understand. Another advantage is that I see this as additional due diligence doing for me. So why I, listen to people is, sometimes you might get a very good point which we may not have thought of, right? So use this as a way to get feedback on your deal as well. So that's another advantage.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love them. And like that, you're basically alluding to listening is very important as a capital raiser. Listening is important. Also, you're saying communication is very important because if you're able to, the way you even know if you're good at selling is like that. Are you clear with your message of like how this project works and what the benefits are and what are anything, whatever is
Yeah.
involved to get this project running?
Yeah.
If you can clearly identify, clearly define it and tell it to them, you
Yeah.
know, again, that builds confidence in them because they see the clear picture. If you're able to paint the picture and they see it, you know, that's also a very good indication. So I love it. Listening is important. Communication is very important. Felt like there was another one in there, but I already
The
forgot.
due
But
diligence kind of, it
due
helps you to
diligence.
get the
Yeah.
feedback from, outsider people outside the deal. So you get
Mhm.
some great feedback and, some viewpoints from about the project as well.
100%. I love you've given the viewers a lot of amazing advice. Any final words or any other advice that you want to give?
I would say that, real estate is stressful, but it is really amazing. Like, that's one message I would like. Don't be afraid of real estate. You have to go through the challenges for sure, but it's pretty rewarding and enjoyable as well. So that's my final message to everyone.
Love it. And like that, as you go through it, you probably won't have it happen to you again
Yeah.
because you've learned from it. And or if it does happen, to be honest, I feel like it doesn't really affect you as much as it does the first time. I feel like the first time you feel like it's like the end of the world.
Yeah.
Sometimes these bad ones are like the end of the world.
Yes.
But the next time it happens, or maybe in the future it happens, it's like a breeze. You don't even, you're like, oh, you know, just get the property manager to, oh, just do this or that. You know, it becomes like nothing because you've been through it, done it, and you don't feel those stresses like you do when it's a first time experience.
Yes, like you're probably more used to that, or or else you are already focusing on the next bigger thing. So, that becomes a very trivial issue for you. So that's what I.
100%.
And another
Love it. Thanks
thing,
so much,
yeah.
Suman. Yes, sir, you had
No,
some
just
final words
one
you wanted
final
to
thing
say?
is like I also wanted to say that when you make a mistake, you are saving hundreds of people from doing the same mistake. So that's another great thing you are doing.
Yes, sharing your solutions to problems is just like that. Like, and also I feel like you learn from it, right? Because when it gives you that opportunity to like reanalyze how things went, and when you share it, it even kind of gives like, did I, you know, sometimes sometimes even in the sharing of it, you kind of learn yourself, like, oh, you know, I didn't realize that this is a good approach, or that's a good approach, or maybe someone asks you a question related to it,
Yeah.
and then they make you think of it in a different point of way, where you're just like, oh, wow, you know, I thought of it in this sense, but, you know, there's so many other point of views. So it's, I think sharing, I mean, that's the point of this show, right? I think
Yeah.
it's like we share, it helps us reflect on our projects. It helps us helping others learn from our mistakes. So I love that you shared. It was amazing to hear everything you said. Thanks so much for coming on. And yeah, thanks for everything.
Yeah, my pleasure, and thanks for having me. Yeah.
Awesome. Everyone, I hope you guys enjoyed. If you guys love what you heard from Suman, follow him. He's going to be tagged on here because you can see what he's up to these days, what projects he's on. He's also on social media, so you get to see that too. So if you guys love what you hear, follow Suman. And if you love the show and you want to see what other shows are coming up, then follow me too. Thanks, everyone. Thanks,
Thanks.
Suman.
Bye. Take care. Bye.
Bye.